I'm going to show you how we can build a city with lots of overlapping buildings without even having to use an eraser like ever. In fact, I'm going to use a marker. So what we're going to do is we have to start with the little buildings, and then we're going to overlap buildings on top of that. Okay? So I'm just going to start off with rectangles, because buildings are rectangles. Sometimes they're tall rectangles, sometimes they're long rectangles. But I'm just going to start off with 3 smallish rectangles that fill my paper like that. Why don't you go ahead and start off with 3 smallish rectangles. For you? Yeah. Okay. Now, everybody should have 3 smallest rectangles. Now, I'm going to show you, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to show you like the mess up page and the good page. So I'm going to show you what kids sometimes do when they don't know any better. What sometimes kids do when they don't know any better, I need everybody looking up here, looking at the screen, is we say, okay, we're going to build a whole city. I want you to build lots of buildings behind the other buildings. So what they do is they start building more buildings. And then that doesn't look like buildings, does that? It just looks like it's kind of stacked up cake or something. What you want to do when you stack up buildings behind each other is I'm going to do medium-sized buildings now. And you start somewhere in the middle of one building, and then you go over, and then you come down in the middle of another building. Then you do that somewhere else. No, don't draw yet. Watch a couple times. Now watch this, because your buildings are going to get taller and skinnier the further back you go. Now over here, I'm going to have a building that's going to be kind of next to and behind. I'm going to go in the middle and over, and then it's going to go all the way down to the ground, and that's okay. Now these front buildings are going to need doors, and you can have it be one door like that, or you could even do like kind of like a shopping building like Target or Walmart or a school or something like that. Or you could even have 2 skinny doors like this. And you know what? I'm going to have a door on this building too, even though it's behind another building, but we still are going to see its door, aren't we? Now we're not going to get too hung up on putting in windows and stuff, because we're going to do something else with this town. But that's how you build a building. Now it looks like I have a ton of buildings in here, doesn't it? But when I count, I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Can you believe that I only have 8 buildings showing? But it seems like I have a ton. So even with just 8, I'm going to go ahead and make it a nice even 9 buildings showing. So I have 3 in the foreground, 3 in the middle ground, and 3 in the background. And when you think of it that way, it doesn't seem like much. But when you look at this, you're like, oh my gosh, it's a whole city. I'm going to put a building a really skinny building way back in the background. Oh my gosh, it's so far away. One thing, let's go back to our bad example here real quick. So let's say you do get going and you're kind of going the right way here. One thing that people sometimes do is they then just start going like this. And that's not quite right either, is it? No. Or sometimes what they'll do is they'll come up here, and then they won't watch where they're going, And so they'll stop too soon. And then it just looks like a giant chimney. So you always want to make sure that when you go over, you always go past that building before you come down. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and build somewhere between 8 to 10 buildings. No more than 10 buildings in our city. Go ahead and build up your city, and then I'm going to show you what our next step is. I'm going to give you about 5 or so minutes to do this. Once you have your 8 to 10 buildings drawn, go over it with a black marker so that they really stand out for our next part of our project. So you're going to trace all of these with black marker. All right, we should all have enough buildings now, and even if you don't, you can get caught up in a few minutes, okay? No, you were only supposed to have no more than 10. So I'll take a look and see if you've got too many, because you don't want the next step to take too long. All right, the next step is we're going to use crayons, and this is actually a great, everybody should be looking up here, up at the screen. This is a great project for using the little stubbies. The little stubbies at the bottom of our crown box is perfect for this project, especially if the crown is naked. That's what some of my little kids call it, is they say that the crowns get naked. And so if you get, because what we need is we need them to be little, and we need to take off the paper. So if the paper is not already off, then what we need to do is you'll want to go ahead and take the paper off. Because we're actually going to be using the side, okay? And if you don't know what color it is, and you want to test, you would flip your paper over, because this color is kind of tricky, because it's dark. So you're like, is it blue? Is it purple? Is it black? Oh, it's green. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to make a texture town. Texture is how something feels when you touch it. But artists can make things look that way. Okay, so I've got what's called texture plates, and I've got a lot of texture plates. I've got these plastic ones, and I've got these paper ones. This is actually old wallpaper samples, and I've got some of those that are actually glued to board, so they're a little bit flatter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of our textures, and it doesn't matter if it's from the plastic or a board or a piece of paper. And I'm going to use this board one first, because it's kind of hard for you to see what it is, because it's white, but it's going to be real easy to see what it is after I'm done. What you do is you take your texture plate, you put it under your paper, you take the side of the crown and you hold the crown like this. You don't hold it like you normally would like this. Instead, you hold it flat so that you can, what you're going to do, it's called a texture rubbing. You're going to rub it up and down. Hold your paper nice and flat down, because you don't want your paper to move on you. Push down nice and hard on your crown. And it's some art magic there. And I like to go over it a few times. If you go over it a few times and you make sure your paper doesn't move, it works really well. See how I go over it several times? Darkens it up. And I can even go in between here, back and forth, just really carefully. It is super awesome. And now I've got this really cool textured building. And then I'm going to switch to a different texture plate. I'm going to use one of these plastic ones here. I'm going to use this one. I'm going to see what it ends up looking like. I put it underneath. I'm going to switch colors. Again, I hold it like this. I hold my paper down really tight, and I'm going to push down really hard. And there's a totally different texture. I'm going to pick out a different one. I'm going to use one of these papers, and this was just, somebody wanted to, this was a wallpaper sample, which is cool. I'm going to pick out a different color crayon. And remember, you want to find the little nubbies at the bottom. The smaller the nubby, probably the better. Yeah, You don't have to break any because we got plenty of little nubbies here towards the end of the year. Let's see here. Where's a good, and you want bright colors. Yellows don't really work as well as the bright, vibrant, darker colors. Now this one has paper on it, so I got to peel the paper off. Peel. Now, isn't that cool? All right, and then, so that one turned out okay. I'm going to pick out a totally new one here. Oh, I'm going to do this one. Well, let's see how this one ends up looking. Now, you got to make sure that it's big enough, though, for the space that you want. Like, this one, it's just not quite big enough, is it? So, I want to do maybe a little building for this one. Find a little nubby. All right, I got an orange one this time. See what it looks like. Going over it several times, pushing down hard on my paper. And if it doesn't show up too much, then go over it again. Look at that. All right, now I'm going to show you a mess up, okay? Should I show it on the mess up paper? All right, so I'm going to show you what happens. So I'm going along and I'm doing it, and then, oh my gosh, my paper moves. Well, then, see how it doesn't have the same pattern? Oh my gosh, my paper moved again. It still will make a texture, but it might not be the texture that you want. It kind of looks all mixed up then. See how that looks all mixed up now? It doesn't look as neat and complete as that one. So that's why you want to keep your paper down nice and flat. And what you're going to do is you're just going to keep changing textures. Keep doing different textures, experiment with different textures. And fill up every single one of these buildings with a different color and a different texture. And because we're using crayons, we've got lots of different colors to choose from. Mm-hmm.